Hey everyone, I'm Almar of almarsguides.com, and in this video here, I'm going to be talking about a bow Haruspex. So this is the combination of hunting and dream mastery, and specifically we're going to be talking about the build as it revolves around a bow. So you can do a throwing weapon Haruspex, you can do a spear Haruspex, or a bow Haruspex. And in this one, like I said before, we're going to be talking specifically about the bow. So let's start by looking over the skills, then we'll look over the gear, and then I'll, bring everything together, show you a little bit of combat, and explain things in more detail. So, looking at the hunting tree, we have Study Prey, and we get the passive Flush Out. Max both of these skills. They're both extremely useful. Call of the Hunt, and you're also going to be using Study Prey at pretty much the start of every single fight. Call of the Hunt, it's a buff that is, it's like a, I guess, medium-term duration buff. It's usually got a longer cooldown than the duration. However, you can get the cooldown lower than the duration with enough recharge gear, which I'll get into once we get to gear. But essentially, this buffs you the flat percentage amount of damage you deal by a significant amount. As you can see here, 174% bonus pierce damage, which is insane. Also, Finesse gives you a ton of offensive ability, as you can see here. One thing that's worth mentioning is Finesse is not as good as it appears to be. And the reason for that is Study Prey, it reduces the enemy's physical resist and more importantly, it reduces their defensive ability. And if you have a significantly higher offensive ability than the enemy's defensive ability, you're going to suffer diminishing returns. So if you have Study Prey on an enemy and you get their defensive ability down to, I don't know, say like 200, 300, and you have what I have, which is I think like almost 1100 offensive ability without Call of the Hunt. With Call of the Hunt though, let me use it right here. 1900 offensive ability. So I have more, like, I've started hitting diminishing returns for offensive ability like 1,000 offensive ability ago, pretty much. So that's worth mentioning to keep in mind as far as Finesse goes. So marksmanship. This is going to be your left mouse click ability, so long as you're a bow or throwing weapon Haruspex. Otherwise, you would use something else. But marksmanship is it's a fantastic ability for people that are using, ranged weapons. It's like the bread and butter ability as far as you can go. Gouge. This ability, if you're a spear Haruspex, it's actually not worth getting because the animation of Gouge triggering is slower than the amount of damage that it would deal. So that would be something that would, like, if you don't believe me, you can Google Gouge Hunting Mastery Titan Quest, or put those words in some sort of order and Google it. And there's some posts on the forums where they'll tell you that they'll confirm what I'm saying, that the Gouge animation is very, 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 very slow, and it'll actually reduce your overall DPS due to the slow animation. Something worth keeping in mind, and bleeding damages and all that, good to write home for anyway. I am a bow Haruspex, however, which means I don't have to deal with the animation. I think it only works for spears. I couldn't find any information that it worked for bows, or that there was a lengthy animation for bows. And when I'm personally firing my bow, I never see it. So volley. This is a good passive that is worth getting if you are using spear, bow, or throwing weapons. As you see, it says it works for all of them. Art of the Hunt. This is going to be a buff you keep on yourself at all times. One thing that's worth mentioning about Art of the Hunt is it also has Find Cover, which is an amazing passive. This gives you a 35% chance to avoid projectiles, which greatly reduces the amount of damage you take from ranged attacks. Herbal Remedy. The main thing we're getting in this for is the plus 100% poison resist that comes with it. It basically allows you to not have to gear with as much poison res on your actual gear. So, Woodlore. This right here, it's a very, very, very good passive, and one thing that's worth mentioning is it is actually an even better passive in normal difficulty, because the flat 350 plus defensive ability that it gives you, you won't actually get that much in normal difficulty because you won't have plus skills. But the flat defensive ability that it gives you in normal difficulty is phenomenal. It is pretty much, it'll get you all the way through normal difficulty without you having to get any other defensive ability from anywhere else. And you'll basically be able to tank everything. Especially during, like, the first 3 acts, you'll be, like, insanely hard to kill because of the amount of defensive ability you have. So as far as Dream goes, On the left side of the build, you see that we have 3 trances, Trance of Wrath, Trance of Convalescence, and Trance of Empathy. So I personally choose Trance of Convalescence because I like the extra survivability. However, you might want to choose something different. This build has tons of survivability as is, so you don't really need the extra survivability. I'm kind of overkill. Trance of Empathy. This is kind of like a combination trance that adds some extra damage as well as some extra survivability. So that is worth mentioning and worth keeping in mind. Like if you would like a middle of the road trance, go with Trance of Empathy. As far as Trance of Wrath, this trance almost entirely is for extra DPS. And if you want to go that road, then get Trance of Wrath. So these 3 passives in Dream, I recommend you get all of them. Lucid Dream, Premonition, and Temporal Flux. All of them are great. Also, you'll notice with Temporal Flux, this also reduces your chance to avoid projectiles, and that stacks with Find Cover. That's one of the things that makes Haruspex such an overpowered build in this game. Summon Nightmare. So this build, I'd recommend you put a few points into Summon Nightmare and a few points into Hypnotic Gaze, and then let your plus skills take over from there. Only put 1 point into Mastermind or no points at all, because it doesn't really benefit you if you only have 1 pet, as much as like other builds that have multiple pets. Once you get later on in the game, you want to dump more points into Summon Nightmare and Hypnotic Gaze. Essentially, I use that as kind of my like end all. I'm trying to think of once I've gotten all the other important skills and I've put skill points and everything else that's important, then I'll dump what's left into Summon Nightmare and Hypnotic Gaze. So Distortion Field, this is a very good ability that will reduce your incoming damage. Another really, really good one to get in Dream that helps a lot. And then the only other things that are left in Dream are Psionic Touch. If you're a Spear Haruspex, you'll get Psionic Touch as well as Psionic Burn. If you're a Spear Haruspex, you also want to get Phantom Strike and the passive that comes with it, and also Distort Reality and the passive that comes with it are also worth getting for a Spear Haruspex. But that is really all as far as the build goes. Now let's look at my gear. So my gear, we're looking at Blade String is the bow that I'm using, and the main reason I'm using this bow is because of the attack damage converted to health. So Band of Souls is the ring that I am using. And I like this ring for the vitality damage resistance, as well as the extra goodie benefits that come with it. Tracker's Hood is the helm that I'm using, and this is one of the best in slot helms you can possibly get for this build. And the reason for that is it has both minus 37% recharge percent and also 106% pierce damage. Mine has 106 pierce damage because I improved it through the legendary reforging quest in in legendary difficulty. Otherwise, it doesn't come with that. I think it has 100% pierce damage, and it doesn't come with the lightning res or the energy. I think those are the stats that got added for mine. It also has plus skills, but that's a minor benefit. Apollo's Will. This has also been made better with the legendary reforging quest. But the main reason you're using this item is for the plus 100% pierce damage. These 2 items together are insanely overpowered, and I would say they are required for this build, although they aren't. They're kind of just a very strong recommendation. Both of these items together will give you plus 200% pierce damage, which already stacks on top of your plus 400% pierce damage from all the other goodies you get in your talent tree. So it's just insane damage that starts adding up at this point. Stonebinder's Cuffs, this is an easy one. I got this because of the plus 3 to all skills. Also, it's nice to have a relic slot that I can use. I was able to increase my pierce and fire res, or my pierce res, a little bit further. I am using 2 pieces of Philip's Unity. You can see Philip's March and Philip's Unity, I guess it's called Philip's Legacy, the set. These 2 pieces of gear, honestly, the only reason that I am using them is for the plus increased pierce ratio that comes on them. So these 2 items are kind of like Tracker's Hood and Apollo's Will. Tracker's Hood and Apollo's Will go very well together because they give you a flat 200% pierce damage. And Philip's Unity and Philip's March go well together because they both give you flat, let's just roughly call them, one's 28% pierce ratio, one's 24%, so let's just call them 25% pierce ratio together. So that would give me 50% pierce ratio between those two items. And my weapon also has 25% pierce ratio, which means that I would have a total of 75% pierce ratio. For those of you who don't know the math behind Titan Quest, essentially what that means is my weapon will deal 75% pierce damage and 25% physical damage. So essentially, what pierce ratio means is the amount of damage you deal in piercing damage. Because if your weapon has 0% pierce ratio, so it has no pierce ratio at all, then you'll deal 100% of your damage in physical damage. Unless you have some other effect on you, like, deals X amount of weapon damage in elemental, then it's different. However, if your weapon has any pierce ratio on it at all, then the amount of pierce ratio you have is the amount of your damage that you deal in pierce. So just keep that in mind. And as far as my neck slot, I got essentially it's a caster necklace. And the main thing I got this for is the plus 17% health, plus 18% total damage, and the minus 11% recharge. All of them are very, very good for this build. And then Talisman of the Jade Emperor, the main thing I have this for is the elemental resistances as well as the minus 25% recharge. Both of those things are just phenomenal for this build. So as far as stats go, since I'm a bow Haruspex, I focused almost everything into dexterity. I did not need to equip a shield. I did not need to equip any strength-based gear, although I could have if I wanted to. So I just basically dumped everything into dexterity. However, it might be a little bit different for you. You might find you might not have access to the same level of gear that I had access to. So you might have to dump some into strength instead. That way you can wear some strength gear to go along with the current gear you have. Or alternatively, if you find something like Archmage's Clasp, which is a bracer that has minus recharge, aka cooldown reduction, then you might want to go a little bit more into intelligence instead of strength. So it's really, you can mix and match your attributes to how you want, depending on what gear you have available to you. More importantly, it's the gear you wear. If you can get increased pierce damage like I got, or if you can get increased pierce ratio like I got, then you'll be in a much better position as far as gear goes. And that is, I think, is all I got to talk to you about as far as that goes. So now actually, as it comes to the combat and actually using this build, so like I said before, the main thing you're going to do is study prey at the start of every single fight. Study prey enemy, and then just start blasting like that. As you can see, they basically get knocked out almost immediately. And like I said, you want to keep Call of the Hunt. What is it? Yep, Call of the Hunt. Sorry, I always get that one mixed up with Art of the Hunt. It's weird. So you want to keep Call of the Hunt up on you at all times. You also want to keep Herbal Remedy on yourself at all times. Herbal Remedy is where you're going to be getting most of your poison res from. And Call of the Hunt is the ability that gives you the flat, like, 200%, on top of other benefits too. Pierce damage. Bleeding, it gives you like 200% bleed damage and a bunch of other offensive ability and a bunch of other goodies too. But as you can see here, I am just tearing through enemies. And this is because I'm stacking so much damage-oriented gear. I have my Tracker's Hood, which is probably best in slot for this build on no matter if you're playing spear, throwing weapons, bow, none of it matters. Tracker's Hood is probably just best in slot for everybody. My Will of the Apollo that stacks with Tracker's Hood. I think my bow has some pierce damage on it too, but it's small. So see how much slower you kill there when you're not using Study Prey? You can see it takes like 3 attacks per shot, but watch this. So that took 3 attacks too, but you could see his health chunk down so much faster. Oh, I see why it took 3 attacks, because Call of the Hunt dropped. So if you rewind the video there for when I didn't have Call of the Hunt on, you could see that I was doing about 4,500 damage per shot. With Call of the Hunt on, I'm doing close to 8,000 though. I know it's a lot of numbers. You might have to like rewind and look a few times over and over, but you'll be able to see. So let's end on something that's actually difficult. So we'll go to the final zone in Act 5. Now this will be a lot harder than the Eternal Embers expansion pack, which is where I just was. These enemies, if you want to see me do these are these are halfway decently hard enemies, I guess you could call them, but I want to get to the Fire Lord enemies that are close to the palace. I love fighting these. They all come up, group around me, and then just get obliterated. I can see it didn't save my map progress past this point again. For some reason, it always does that, which means I'm probably not going to be able to get into the palace for whatever reason. So here's the giants. We'll take them all outside of the palace. Little salamanders, as you've seen, we just chunked off their health. As you can see, though, they do quite a bit of damage. So I didn't have Call of the Hunt there. So that now I'm using, I got Call of the Hunt up, and as you can see, it's just tearing through enemies at this point. So we'll Study Prey. That's Study Prey with 2 shots, basically. And you can see, I'm doing 9,000 damage per shot. I think that was 15,000 damage on him. And that is the power of this build. Well, it's the power of my gear combined with this build. It is worth mentioning, you don't need all of this gear that I have in order to make this build actually work as well as you see me, with right here. If you just get like Tracker's Hood and Apollo's Will right here, then you'll be doing a ton of damage. If you just get both of the Phillips items instead of the Tracker's Hood and the other thing, then you're going to be doing tons of damage. And honestly, if you just stack Recharge, you're going to be doing tons of damage, because then you'll be able to keep Call of the Hunt up at all times. So there's a lot of little mini things you can do for this build to improve your overall damage. You don't have to have everything like you see me with in this video. And if I can guess, good, I can get through here. I'm glad it didn't screw me over, because I wanted to kill Loki for you guys to see. And there you go. That is the power of this build. And that's really all there is to it. I'll end the video here. Hopefully this video helped you guys out. Hopefully you guys learned something. If I forgot anything whatsoever, let me know in the comments section below. Like my Summon Nightmare pet that I forgot to cast the entire time for the video. If I forgot something like that, let me know in the comments section below. Aside from that, though, if this video helped you out, leave me a like, because it helps me out, and I will catch you guys around in future Titan Quest videos. Peace.